Welcome to Beyond Bitewings, the business side of dentistry, brought to you by Edwards & Associates PC. Join us as we discuss how to build your dental practice, optimize your income, and plan for your future. This podcast is distributed with the understanding that Edwards & Associates PC is not rendering legal, accounting, or professional advice. Listeners should consult with their business advisors before acting on any of the information that is shared. At Edwards & Associates PC, our business is the business of dentistry. For help or more information, visit our website at enassociates.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Bitewings. In today's episode, we have a special guest for our listeners. His name is Dr. Santosh Patel, and he's going to talk about a very interesting subject matter that I feel like a lot of our listeners, especially in the dental world, may not be aware of, and I personally think it will be very helpful. And within the studio, aside from our guest, we also have Robert.
Good afternoon.
And without further ado, let's get started. So Santosh, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
We're doing good. Thank you.
Good. I wanted to make one quick correction. So I am actually not a doctor, even though I love being called a doctor. I am the spouse of a doctor, but my wife's a dentist. But just wanted to correct that as well, just in case people have some questions. But I am more on the operations side. I'm not an actual clinician.
Well, okay. I get that same thing. My wife actually has a PhD in psychology. She's a practice management consultant in the dental industry, and her maiden name is Tiger. Dr.
Okay.
Tiger. And a lot of times we're at a hotel and I'll call down to the front desk and they'll say, "Yes, Mr. Tiger, what would you like?" So I'm the husband of the doctor. So
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about your company, the name of the company, and what exactly it is you do, because we've had a lot of our clients and other people that have talked to me about needing, I think, what you do, what you provide, the service you provide. So tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my name is Santosh Patel. So our company's name is Complete Specialty Solutions. I'm the co-founder and president. Our really mission and vision within our company is how do we integrate in-house specialty services, right? And so we're not a locum agency. We're not a staffing agency. We're not just providing a specialist and kind of walking away. We're really focused on the complete solution of adding oral surgery, adding orthodontics, periodontics, or endodontics within your practice. I come really from an operations background from the medical space, kind of built large multi-specialty physician groups. And my wife is a dentist. And by virtue of that, we had a practice in Houston and eventually moved back to Dallas. That's where all of our babysitters are. And so that was a critical move for us. It was a very important move. And by learning more of the dental space, we realized obviously there's a trend towards, the one-stop shop, right? Patients are asking for it, they're demanding it, they do it in kind of their different buying habits. But there was some fragmentation in how that was really being provided to dental practices, right? You look at some of the larger DSOs out there, they're incorporating in-house specialties. So they have an oral surgeon who comes at a cadence of once a month or twice a month. But we found it was difficult, it was challenging for independent practices to be able to do that, right? They didn't have a specialty recruiter. They don't have someone who's just focused on the specialty operations, because it is kind of a different animal in integrating specialty. So that's really where our vision kind of started. Myself, my partners, one's an orthodontist, one's an operator, and then one is a technology entrepreneur. So we really wanted to kind of create the operational vision of adding specialty into a practice and letting practices really keep their patients and revenue within their four walls.
Well, I know in my experience, when a doctor comes to me and they say, "Hey, I need a orthodontist one day a month, or I need a periodontist for once a week or something," they have no clue where to start looking for that. They think they're starting by calling me, and then it's like now I have to go try to find them somebody. And until I met you, and you and I met at the Dallas Southwest Dental Conference this past September. And until I met you, I didn't know there was anyone really in your space at all. So I think it's a great opportunity to really put two and two together and hopefully, get 5 or more.
Yeah. Well, is that the CPA doing math?
Well, that's the creative way of doing math.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. To your point, as we were starting this business, one of the first things we were doing, we were just going out there and asking dentists, and what are the pain points? We're asking specialists, what are your pain points in doing this? And one of the things that would always come up from the general dentist was, well, we want to do this, we don't know how to do it. Right. And so kind of our mantra became, well, we can be the how partner, right? We can formulate a process where we take on the insurance verification. We go through the treatment planning. We can call the patients on behalf of the practice and collect a deposit, go over pre-op instructions and post-op instructions. We can bring the specialist that is somebody who's at a consistent kind of frame of mind for your practice, really seen as like an associate of your practice, right? It's not a locum that's rotating every week. It's someone who, has some investment within kind of the patient experience as well. And take on really kind of bringing the specialty assistants, we even bring a front desk employee in to help manage the workflow. So the goal there is to take out any additional burden that the practice would kind of have on integrating a new service line, right? New specialty. You think about, path of least resistance, right? How do we become that path of least resistance? We realize, well, let us kind of take on each of those responsibilities for the practice and make it seamless.
And that's great that you do all of those things that you mentioned. I didn't realize that myself. And I know in my experience, when I have a doctor that does bring in someone, they usually end up doing all the things that you mentioned, except the actual treatment, of course. And that's what the specialist is for. So your service is kind of a one-stop shop. Is that the only way you present it, or are there some options that the doctor would have?
That's a great question. So as it stands today, that's kind of, we're an end-to-end solution, right? So we provide the full service kind of white glove, kind of service. There's been a lot of interest especially in other markets. So currently we're in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Nashville, and we're just expanding out to Philadelphia. But there's groups out in Seattle and California who are looking for parts of our service and not necessarily all of our service, but they really like, we've done our demo of our software that we built. They really like the software component that creates a lot of transparency to the specialists, a lot of accountability to the teams. And so that component is something where we're going to actually kind of break out like a CSS light kind of version, right, if you will. So I would say probably around March, April, we'll have another option for customers who, maybe still want to maintain some of those responsibilities, don't want to necessarily hand everything off, but, still kind of want some core support.
Okay. So how's that going to work? Are they going to license the software? Are they going to purchase it outright? What do you picture there?
So we envision it's like a tech-enabled kind of model where it would be licensed for, kind of a subscription per month to be able to have access to the software. And again, happy to even do a webinar and a demo of what that looks like. But if you think about it, it has data analytics on how many referrals are actually being referred in. And it then maintains kind of an active list of those patients. The specialist from their mobile device can actually very easily see what the schedule is going to look like with access to the pano, the med history, all from their fingertips, right? And keeping it very simple. And then there's an active kind of communication on what's our percentage of case acceptance. There's a patient engagement component where, so imagine when a patient is being referred, right? When a patient is being referred to a specialist, many times the patient has no idea who that specialist is, right? They may get a name, they don't have a visual. In the past, we used to give a bio card, and that was kind of our way of saying, here's the doctor. Well, now we're incorporating actually a video introduction of the specialist, right? So the moment the patient referral has been submitted, the patient now gets a text message of the specialist, the oral surgeon saying, hi, I'm Dr. Joe Smith. I'm your oral surgeon. We received your referral from your general dentist. We're going to be taking a look at all your x-rays and your medical history information. You're going to receive a call from us as well, but understand you're going to be in great hands. And we're going to also consult with you and answer any questions you may have. Right. So that creates a complete different level of patient experience. And that's really something that we have focused on in terms of, leveraging technology.
That's great. I mean, I can't believe you do all that. And how do you charge for the service?
So we're not doing it yet. We do this internally for our existing clients. We haven't started licensing the software. So for all of our existing clients, the software is part of the solution, right?
Okay.
Like we just could not operate our business without it. It's our practice management, it's our project management kind of software. But in terms of how we license it, we're actually kind of going through the pricing now and kind of maybe different features. So, probably range somewhere between $100 to $200 a month per location. But, ultimately the goal there is how do you kind of retain and drive these higher revenue cases and also provide kind of compliance and transparency back to the specialist. I mean, so there's post-op instructions that are video, there's pre-op instructions. So it really checks the box to, again, ensure that the patient has an optimal experience.
Okay. And talking about your specialist, then are they employees of yours and then you, hire them out to these other general dentists or how does that work?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah. So they're employed within CSS. We essentially just provide a service that's all inclusive, which includes, again, the provider, the staff, supplies, equipment, and operational support to the practice. Our fees range somewhere between 65 to 70% of the adjusted production. And, what we find is many offices, and again, many offices integrate specialty on their own. They do a great job. I think if you go back and ask them, it took some time to get to that point, right? There's some learning curves and some expenses along the way to kind of get comfortable with adding specialty. So we want to lessen that learning curve. And at the same time, we also want to come in with the perspective of, if you did do this on your own, you're typically paying a 50-50 split with a specialist, plus you're using your operations team, your resources. So your cost comes in at right around 60%. So we do have a little bit of a kind of a markup to kind of cover some of our additional support services. But, we feel we're pretty competitive to if, the make versus buy essentially decision.
Well, and what is your capacity and your availability of doctors? Because I'm always having people calling me and saying, hey, I need someone, one day a month or one day a week. And how soon can you have them here?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate. Each of our markets, we're constantly recruiting our specialists. Many of our specialists actually own their own practices, and either they have their associates or they themselves come work with us. And so we're constantly adding to our bench of specialists. So, what we find is once we've been introduced to an office, we then go and do a little due diligence, right? We want to make sure this is a good opportunity for them. It's also a good opportunity for our specialists. And then once, we've kind of got the green light on both sides, we're actually able to start and activate services within 30 to 45 days. We are mainly out of network when it comes to credentialing, right? Sometimes offices ask that question. Our fees are right around the 75th percentile of the market. So, we feel most patients don't care as much about out of network as they do out of pocket. And so as long as the patient portions and the fees aligned, knowing that we're not charging for a consult, knowing that we're not really charging for a new set of imaging, we want to keep it pretty consistent for the patient, so which allows us to kind of accelerate starting services faster.
Okay. And if most of your specialists have their own practices, how do you deal with non-competes?
So our non-compete, very frankly, our non-compete is that essentially our specialists just do not work in the practice without CSS for a period of 2 years, right? And so if the specialist has their office, 4 or 5 miles from the practice, and the specialist is okay with still traveling to that office, then there is no breach of non-compete.
Okay. Now, what if one of the patients leaves the client and actually goes to the specialist?
We've been doing this for 4 years. That actually just has not occurred outside of maybe a post-op visit that needs to happen.
Oh, okay.
A lot of our treatments are transactional, right? So it's a root canal, it's wisdom teeth, it's an implant. On the ortho side, sometimes patients will ask that question if they can go to the orthodontist's office, and that's just maybe because of the timing or the scheduling or the frequency. But ultimately, we kind of are able to redirect the patients to let them know, but really all their records and all their imaging and all their notes, everything's still tied to the family practice, as well as our ability to do coordination with their hygiene team, right? So we've really kind of navigated those discussions to ensure the patients understand that, the optimal place for them, since they've already started their treatment, is to continue their treatment at the general practice.
Okay. So if I had a client that called me tomorrow and said, hey, I need a specialist in my practice, what do I do? What do I do next? I call you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's kind of the benefit of, you and I and our partnership that we, engage into is just essentially just, supporting each other. We're going to have, general practices who have questions, even if they're not ready to start today. I want to be a resource, right? Sometimes I want to start in 6 months. And so, what does that look like? And what do I need to do to make my office ready for adding specialty? But, absolutely, they can reach out to me, and I'm happy to give my email and phone number at the end of this if you'd like.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah. The problem I see sometimes is more often than not, the clients call me when they've already waited too long, and it's not that they want to start in 6 months, it's that they wish they had started last month. So,
Sure.
So what is your availability? I mean, if someone calls and says, hey, I need someone like within 3 weeks, can you fill that?
We can. What we try to make sure we're not seen as is a locum agency, right?
Right.
We want to establish some longevity within the partnerships and the relationships we have with the practice. So if they're ready to have someone come in 3 weeks, and we have specialists that have availability, which they do, we would create the meet and greet with that practice to make sure it's a good fit for both sides. And then if, at that point, if they're like, all right, I'll see you in 2 weeks, then we'll get moving on our side, and we can operationalize it pretty quick. But again, we don't want to set it up for failure. If they've waited that long, I think it's okay to wait another, 15, 20 days to make sure it's successful. And that's kind of our view. And, where we feel like our models really hit 3 kind of different areas is, one, a practice who's never had specialty, but they know they have the patient volume for it. 2, a practice that maybe has a specialist, but the specialist is leaving and they want someone else going to take in that program and that process. And then 3, with what we're noticing with kind of smaller, groups or DSOs, is they eventually want to do their own specialty program, but they want someone to help them start it, right? And we've had some open discussions with groups that say, like for you to help do this for us for 2-3 years, and we may eventually want to take it on ourselves. And as long as we're having open dialogue about it, I think that's fair and that's okay. We're happy to help and kind of, again, build a program. We're pretty confident that there's enough of a need out there within the communities that we serve that our specialists can continue to stay busy and active.
Okay, and I think Ash has a question here too. Go ahead, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating information, Santosh. I know
thank you.
Earlier you mentioned that some of the phone calls that you guys receive are transactional, but at the same time you're also saying that you don't want to be seen as a temp agency, that there should be some length to that relationship. Is there a contractual obligation for, let's say, someone who wants to contact you and actually wants to engage you for your services?
Great question. Yes. So we have a contract. Now, the contract does not commence really until we have our first production day. And, so that's essentially when kind of the contract is really active. The intent of the contract is to protect the non-compete. If we're obviously spending time and effort and resources to recruit specialists, if we introduce them to the general practice and, for whatever reason, the general practice wants to partner with that specialist independent of us, then that's just what we're protecting. But in terms of the actual contract itself, it's a 60-day contract, and there's no obligation to actually schedule production days. So for example, let's say we're out there, this month, and for whatever reason, you decide that you no longer want to use our services. We have that 60-day language in there just so our providers have access to any post-op patients needed. But there's no obligation that the practice has to schedule another day with us. I've always been in the mindset of I don't want to go into someone's house if they don't want me in their house. Right. So, and I think that's mutual and fair across the board. And we've been very fortunate and blessed kind of in our space that we've been able to develop, strong partnerships with our clients, and just really building that through trust and integrity, and not rushing anything, not trying to oversell anything. I think ultimately the business model makes sense, right? I think everyone conceptually understands that. It's making sure that the people that are in place are the right fit for that practice. And once we kind of get that ironed out and we find the right pieces, then this becomes a very successful relationship for all involved.
Oh, I agree. It sounds mutually beneficial for both, the specialist as well as the person who's calling in the specialist.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this question for clarity on the contract issue. You said it's a 60-day contract, but to me that sounds like that the contract's only for 60 days. But is it? So explain that to me. If I hire your firm to provide specialists to my practice, I'm only obligated for 60 days. But if I'm going to use you for longer, how does that work?
Yeah, so in Texas, I think all agreements have to be a minimum of like 12-year contract, 12-month contract, and 1-year contract. Yeah, 12-year. Yeah,
no. Okay.
12-month contract, and well, with an out clause, right? And so the out clause is the 60 days. Is what I was referencing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, Ash. Anything else you can think of to ask Santosh?
No, at the moment. I mean, I'm just thinking of all the clients that can use this service.
Oh, I know. Yeah, there's a lot.
If I can chime in, one common question is, well, how do I know my office is ready for specialty, right?
Right.
And one of the things that we found over the last couple of years is, if the practice has typically 5 to 7 referrals that they know they're actively referring out, that's something to start kind of taking note of and recording within the practice management system, or some folks just use a binder, however they are documenting it, but starting to actually track how many patients are they referring out and for what specialty.
When you say
that's important.
When you say referring out, over what period of time? A month?
A month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
So if you're referring out 5 to 7 patients a month, then you can really justify being able to add a specialty program within the practice. You do definitely need to make sure that there is at least one, if not two, ideally 2 operatories that would be available. Obviously at least 1 or 2 days during the week. I think that's important. With oral surgery, we typically use 2 operatories. Oral surgery, perio, we usually use 2 operatories. We're typically done by 1:30. We start early, we try to finish early and be mindful of the practice. With ortho, we start with maybe a couple operatories, but then eventually we do become chair hogs,
right?
And so we'll take over the whole practice, which has not really been a concern for many practice owners because that gives them a day off, right? And so it works to everyone's benefit there. But 5 to 7 referrals per month of a particular specialty or service, right? If it's implants or whatever it may be. It's also what we found is, practices are averaging around 70,000 of production per month, usually has kind of a healthy, active patient base. That's not kind of a steadfast rule, though. I'll tell you, we work with some offices that are producing 30 to 40,000 a month, and their specialty program is consistent 10 to 15,000 a month. And that's simply because the patients absolutely love and trust the dentist, that the dentist just does not feel comfortable maybe placing implants or doing third molar extractions. So it still allows for some revenue lift within the practice.
Okay, and before we get off here, refresh my memory. I know you mentioned this before, but say it one more time. The areas in which you're actively providing the specialist right now.
We are in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Nashville, and kind of expanding out to Northwest Philadelphia market, so the Lancaster, Bethlehem market.
And then, did you mention Seattle before, or did I just imagine that?
So Seattle was more of a those are one of the groups that are looking for part of our services,
okay,
not the full complement of services. And so that was an example I was using of a group that asked for us to kind of be creative with our existing model, which I think we should be able to do by March this year.
Okay, let me ask you this: if you have people in San Antonio, would they be willing to go down to, say, Harlingen or Brownsville to do the service for practice down there?
So we actually have some providers within our pipeline that are in South Texas. One of our goals is to make sure our providers are within about an hour and a half distance from the practice they serve. And that's really just for post-op reasons, right? If there's any post-op complications or a patient is feeling some discomfort and they need a specialist to see them, we feel it's in the best interest for the patient experience as well as compliance and liability to make sure they're kind of within that vicinity. But if there's a practice or a group that's in a different market, we definitely would like to explore that because we could have some options to still serve them.
Outstanding. Great information. I appreciate you being on today. Now take this opportunity to give everyone your phone number, email contact, and then we'll wind up the podcast.
Absolutely. So again, name is Santosh, Santosh. Last name is Patel, Patel. My email is Santosh, Santosh @completespecialty.com. That's also our website is completespecialty.com. My phone number is 214-435-7263. My blood type is B positive.
That is a funny man.
And if they can't remember any of that, then Ash, you can tell them how to get in touch with us, and we'll get them in touch with Santosh.
Right, of course. So all our listeners out there, if you guys have questions or if you guys would like to hear other similar topics to what we discussed today, please feel free to reach us at info@eandassociates.com, and that and is spelled out A-N-D. It was a pleasure having you here today with us today, Santosh.
Thank you both. I really appreciate your time.
Sure, you bet.
Here.
Thanks for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to Beyond Bitewings on your favorite podcast platform. For more info, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or reach out to us on our website. You can also shoot us an email at info@eandassociates.com.